Hey y'all, welcome to the Southern Appalachian Herbal Podcast. I'm Judson Carroll and I'm an herbalist. I'm also a wild crafter, a gardener, and herb grower. I'm coming to you from high atop the beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina, just a stone's throw from the Tennessee line, overlooking the Pisgah National Forest. Absolutely surrounded by the bounty of God's green earth. I spent most of my life wandering these mountains and learning about plants from the old-timers and all sorts of characters. On this show, we'll talk about herbs and how to use them, how to find them, how to grow them, how to make preparations. We'll talk about a lot of things. We can also talk about permaculture, homesteading, foraging, and living off the land. Most anything, really. You can email me at southernappalachianherbs@gmail.com if you have a question or a comment. You can also contact me through the Grow Network, where I'm a regular contributor and a moderator for the forums. And my blog is, of course, southernappalachianherbs@blogspot.com. All right, y'all. I'm going to sit my guitar down and let's talk about herbs.
Hey y'all, welcome to this week's show. Today we are going to talk about, well, probably my favorite culinary herb, but it's also one of my favorite medicinal herbs. It's a highly underrated herb in both categories, and really it is a very powerful herb in both categories. It's parsley. Now, if you just know parsley as that little sprig of parsley on the side of your plate when you have a steak in a restaurant or something, and you push it to the side and don't eat it, you don't know parsley. Okay, I'm going to get into parsley. It is really a very powerful medicinal herb. It's one of the essentials. I would not have a garden without growing parsley. And it's also one that I put in almost every savory dish I cook. So before I get into parsley, let's do the recipe of the week. Everybody loves the recipe of the week. I get so much great feedback off of this. Hopefully, it will, I have a pretty good audience of people who are interested in medicinal herbal medicine. Hopefully the recipes will grow the other side of the audience too, people who are just into food. And really, if I can accomplish helping people who enjoy good food and home cooking to use more herbs in their cooking, well, they'll get the medicinal benefits of the herbs. And if I can encourage people who are interested in herbal medicine to do more home cooking, they'll get the nutritional benefits and the taste benefits of the good food. So I really do see these as very complementary. And, well, the feedback, like I said, has been great. Whenever I forget to do the recipe, I always get these messages, where was the recipe this week? I want the recipe. So last week I mentioned Easter ham. That is such a tradition in the South. I mean, let me tell you, I'm from North Carolina. I'm grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents, et cetera, going back to the 1600s, really from eastern North Carolina, the coastal swamp areas. Other side of my family, well, really actually came from that area and then moved up to the mountains, probably 100 years ago now, but deep roots in eastern North Carolina coast and swamp and what they call the eastern Piedmont region. Depending on whether you're a little north of one area or a little south, it's called down east, or it's just the swamps. Really, it was it was actually one of the first settled regions in all of America by European settlers. Not only did we have the Jamestown colony, just across the line of Virginia, the colony at Bath. You may remember Bath as where Blackbeard hung out. There's Croatan area. Sir Walter Raleigh's colony was right here, and I probably had some ancestors actually in Sir Walter Raleigh's colony. They were kind of absorbed into the Lumbee tribe of North Carolina, and a Lumbee because they're a Native American with an English name like Hunt and Locklear and Jacobs and etc. And then there was also a Spanish colony here. Long before the English ever got here, there was actually a very large, well, I won't say large, There was a lot of trade between the Spanish and the Native Americans, and there was actually a road that ran like essentially from Mexico City to somewhere, where would I say, about Morganton, North Carolina. But then we also had, Spanish on the coast all over South Carolina. And again, really before the English settled in, the French and Spanish had settled the islands, and they had their sugar plantations, and that's where Creole culture comes from. That's a mix of French, Spanish, African, and Native. And I have some Creole heritage, so deep roots. Well, why am I saying that? Because the area I live in which I live, my heritage is so closely associated with pork. It's crazy. I mean, the Spanish brought the first pigs to America. There was actually a shipwreck off the coast of Georgia, and the pig swam to what's known as Ossabaw Island. So the Ossabaw pig is America's first heritage pig. But, if you look at the history of Williamsburg, they had pigs just everywhere. They had what they called lard pigs, small pigs that were very fat, that provided the necessary fat really for the colonists, because game really does tend to be fairly lean. If you tried to eat a diet of just rabbits, for instance, wild rabbits are so lean you would die. You would literally not have enough fat to live. And when I criticize the vegan and vegetarian diets, a big part of that is the lack of animal fat. If you're not getting enough fat, I mean, your brain is, essentially composed of cholesterol. When you don't eat enough fat in your diet, natural fat, I'm not talking margarine and, whatever, canola oil and such as that. I mean, canola is not the worst oil you can have, but I'm not talking processed, essentially artificial fats. I'm talking animal fats, fats from fish, and also, fats from nuts and such. But big distinction there. When you don't get enough natural fat in your diet, you can have, your immunity suffers, your skin begins to get thin and wrinkled, you age prematurely. All these, 20-something-year-old girls that are all thin and lithe and say how great veganism is for their diet, give them 10 years and, sorry if this offends you, but their breasts will shrivel up like raisins. They're not going to be too happy with the result of that diet. And they'll get all the wrinkles around the mouth and the eyes and brittle, thin hair, brittle fingernails. And you go on that path, you're going to have dementia. It's like when people take serious cholesterol medications. They lower that cholesterol, and suddenly they start having personality changes. They can have frozen shoulder syndrome. They can become manic depressive. I really think a lot of the anxiety and depression and mental illness in our society right now is due to diet. And I don't just mean lack of animal fats. I mean the processed foods and the chemicals that are in the diet, and the chemical estrogens that are in soy, but also in like bottled water. Bottled water is just full of carcinogenic substances and chemical estrogens from the plastic in which it's bottled. Really bad stuff. But, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Virginia even, has been so closely associated with pork going back hundreds of years that actually in the history of Williamsburg, Virginia, they referred to the area of eastern North Carolina, where my family's been since the 1600s, as a place you just really wouldn't want to go, because it was full of nothing but Scots-Irish who laid around drunk on the porch all day, letting their kids and hogs go wild in the woods, the swamps. They were supposed to be full of ill humors due to whiskey, excessive consumption of whiskey and pork. Well, I don't know about you, but you give me a good slice of smoked ham and a glass of bourbon, and I'm not going to be full of ill humors. In fact, I'm going to be about as happy as can be. So anyway, last week I talked about that Easter ham and the wonderful almost pesto or chimichurri that I like to pair with it, made from wild ramps. Well, another aspect of ham is the ham bone. I mean, if someone said, "Oh my, what am I going to do with this ham bone?" I would think it was like a humble brag. I love that flavor. And I really do think the very best way to use a ham bone is in a bean soup. So, here's what I did yesterday. Uh, Took that ham bone, put it in some water, let it boil, started making a good broth off of that ham bone. I never waste a ham bone, right? In fact, I will take the fattier parts of the ham and some of the skin, if there's some skin on a smoked ham, and trim that off and freeze it. And I'll save that to put in like my pork and beans and my baked beans and all kinds of stuff like that. So get that ham bone going. When it comes to beans, I honestly don't think you can have too many dried beans on hand. I'm a legume fanatic, well, equally as much as I'm a pork fanatic or a fanatic of any food. You probably figured out I'm a real can get really into just about any food. Um, I used a mix of, I guess, navy beans, some dried limas, pinto. I had some split peas, lentils. I don't know. I ended up using, I don't know, maybe 10 different varieties of beans. What else? Kidney beans, black beans. Like I said, I don't think you can use too many beans in a bean soup. Anasazis are absolutely one of my favorite. Anasazis are a bean that has a really cool history. Supposedly they were found in a cave in Arizona. Native Americans had stored them away there like 1,000 years later, earlier, I mean, and they still germinated and grew beans. It's one of the tastiest beans. Oh, black turtle beans, very associated with the Cherokee tribe. They're delicious. Those little red beans that they love so much in Louisiana. And there's only probably one bean, well, and some chickpeas. Chickpeas for texture, garbanzo beans, whatever you want to call them. That's always good. Just a few, just to give you that nice kind of crunch. You know what? You could even throw some peanuts in there. They're not gonna. The peanuts are a legume, just like a bean. They're not gonna break down and get soft. But if you just want to crunch and maybe you didn't have some chickpeas, a few peanuts, just dried peanuts, no problem. Um, the only one I probably wouldn't use is called Eye of the Goat. Eye of the Goat is my all-time favorite storage bean. It is so wonderful in flavor. It actually tastes like beef. I mean, if I had to have some kind of vegetarian diet for a while, forget the soybeans. I don't want any soy anywhere near me, okay? I've been on a farm where we grew soy. It's soaked in chemicals. It's absolutely horrible for your health. And it's full of phytoestrogens. I mean, men should not be eating soy. And really, women, I mean, if you knew how contaminated, I mean, look, a study came out, I think it was last week, and they were looking at urine tests. Somebody goes in for a drug test, or maybe they have a medical reason they need their urine tested. Overall, in the United States, 80% of urine tests are coming back with glycophosphate or Roundup in the urine. Where do you think you're getting that from? You're getting it from soy, you're getting it from corn, you're getting it from commercially raised wheat and other produce. Really, especially what we call grains and pulses, your dry beans and your grains, because they spray them before they plant to get rid of weeds, essentially anything that would compete with this crop. And they spray it before they harvest to dry them out. It's actually a desiccating substance. As far as I'm concerned, and I can't prove this is a supposition and I'm not making any claims, I would be willing to wager that the reason suddenly everybody has gluten intolerance, suddenly everyone has peanut allergies, suddenly more people are lactose intolerant. These things were like unknown to American medicine 50 years ago. No one had. I mean, in the population of the world, the Japanese actually have a genetic predisposition to be lactose intolerant. Europeans, Celtic, British, whatever, most Native Americans, no. We handle gluten fine, we handle lactose fine, we handle peanuts and strawberries. And then suddenly, 20, 30 years ago, we started hearing about, first it was strawberry and peanut allergies. Shellfish, that's genetic. Some people do have a shellfish allergy, but I'm talking just, plants here. This whole gluten intolerance thing, did not come about until we started spraying the crops with such chemicals. As far as I'm concerned, that's a real good reason to eat a natural diet. But anyway, eye of the goat bean tastes like really nice beef. So if I had to make a fake hamburger, it would be a bean burger. Actually, I'd probably just make a lot of refried beans because I love refried beans anyway. And maybe I'll give you my refried bean recipe next week. But this is just a ham bone and bean soup. So had a big mess of dried beans, gave them a good soak overnight. Into my nice big pot, put in some oil. Um, Actually, I think, yeah, no, this time I did just use cooking oil. A lot of times I'll use lard. But anyway, this time I just used some cooking oil. Olive oil is what I had on hand, in fact. Put in some olive oil, chopped up a couple of onions, put them in there, sweat them down, garlic. Always remember, you don't want to burn your garlic. That's actually like the last vegetable you add when you're sweating things down. So start with onions, put in some chopped carrots, chopped celery. That's what you call a mirepoix. Get it sweated down. Put in the garlic. Remember, those celery leaves have a lot of flavor. Put that in there. Put in my beans, my ham broth, my ham bone, and parsley and oregano. A little pinch of Creole seasoning and a lot of crushed red pepper. And wow, that's good. But one more thing. I think this soup is, especially it's a spring soup, right? I put in, I forgot to say, probably a quart of crushed tomatoes. So the liquid essentially was ham broth and crushed tomato. Now, if I hadn't had ham broth, I would have used chicken broth. You can do the same thing, but ham broth and crushed tomato, and I think yeah, a little. Well, it was Creole seasoning. I was trying to remember if I put in a little like chili powder or something, but yeah, that's what it was. Anyway, really delicious, salt and pepper to taste. But because it's a spring soup, I want some fresh spring greens in there. Now, a lot of times I'll put in spinach. Spinach is absolutely delicious with a bean and pork soup. It's a real go-to, and in spring when it's coming in, it's great. Dandelion greens are a real favorite. They're a little bit more bitter if you can handle a little more bitter green. Really good. Gives a nice contrast. Kind of cuts through the fattiness of the pork and perks everything up really well. But you know what I did this time? The poke greens, what we call poke salad, is coming in. Now, you probably don't want to do this the way I do it, okay? I've been eating poke all my life, and I've told you before, I've probably developed somewhat of a tolerance to the slight toxicity of poke. Now, the root of poke and the berries are somewhat toxic. They have a poisonous quality to them. If you had a strong tincture or a really strong somehow infusion of poke, it could actually be fatal. Okay, I'm not gonna minimize that, but in the natural state, you would throw up before you actually got poisoned. Kids every year mistake poke berries for an edible berry. They eat them, they throw up, they survive. If you had a weak constitution, that could be a problem, I'm sure. But poke will generally make you throw up before it actually makes you sick. But again, I don't want to minimize it. Poke is strong medicine, especially the root. And the root we use for all kinds of stuff. It's antiviral. It purges the lymph system. Good medicine. Now, poke greens, or what's known as poke salad, they're coming in right now. Not actually in the mountain where I live, but a little bit down the mountain. I was able to harvest some. When the plant just sprouts up, it's a perennial, it comes back every spring. When it just sprouts up, it's going to put up a top, I guess you would say a floret, of very tender green spinach-like leaves that actually taste sort of like sweet garden peas. Before any redness, the stalk of the poke will turn red as it gets a little more mature. Before any redness moves into the leaves, that's when people harvest them. It's very traditional throughout the South to eat salat. That's S-A-L-A-T. It's an old English term just meaning greens. It doesn't actually mean salad, two different words. Salad actually comes from an old word, means like a mixture. But anyway, poke salad is a spring tonic. It's thought to cleanse the blood. It has a lot of vitamin C in it. It was very important for our ancestors when they spent the winter eating dried beans and salted meat. So it goes perfectly with a dried bean and ham soup. I mean, I cannot tell you how good this is actually. But here's the deal. Just about every foraging guide and every expert will tell you to pick your greens and then boil them in at least one change of water. I have several books. Some say boil in one change of water, discard the water, and then cook them down in fat and eat them the way you would southern greens. Others that are more modern say do them in 3 changes of water. As far as I'm concerned, once you've boiled these leaves in 3 changes of water, you've taken away all the nutrition and flavor. Now, if you're really sensitive to poke, hey, I'm going to recommend you do that. I don't do that. I don't boil them and change the water at all. When the poke leaves are nice and tender as they are right now, I just take them fresh and toss them in the soup like I would spinach leaves. I'm not going to recommend you do that, but if you have a tolerance to poke, as I do, it made the most delicious soup I can possibly describe. Better than spinach, better than dandelion greens, better than any kind of green I could think to put in there. But again, that's me. Whether you choose to do it or not, remember this is the time of year to begin harvesting your poke greens, and it's a good way to get the medicinal benefits of the poke plant with little to none of the toxin. But be very careful, and you know, a standard disclaimer, I'm not telling you to do it. I'm not telling you it's safe. I'm just telling you it's what I do, and yeah, it's fantastic. It really is. I mean, we had such a mild winter and there's so many colds going around. I am absolutely looking at poke. Well, I actually use the root and everything, but the greens at least as that spring tonic to build up immunity, to flush the toxins, dead viruses, whatever out of the system. And like I said, I think it's absolutely delicious. And if you want to go the standard way of boiling it and then cooking it down with oil and salt, you're going to have a fantastic meal. Definitely feel free to throw some onions and garlic in there too if you want it. Just kind of what I do, a little hot pepper, and I put some vinegar on it when I do cook them in fat. But added to a ham bone and bean soup, I'm telling you, that's good stuff. That's just plain good eating. And it's still, we're getting warm in the days and cool at night, and it's great just to have that hot bowl of hearty, flavorful soup. So now let's get on to the herb, and as I said, the herb is parsley, which I just mentioned as a culinary herb. Well, why is parsley such a popular culinary herb? I mean, if you taste it on its own, it doesn't taste like much. Yeah, it kind of brightens up a dish a little bit, but it actually has essential oils in it that enhance the flavor of any food to which it's added. Parsley is actually a natural flavor enhancer, much as is celery leaf. And when you cook with those herbs, they make everything you cook with taste more rich and full, brighter, more interesting. And I use a ton of parsley. I mean, I cook with it almost daily, and I will make a salad of parsley leaves. I mean, seriously, instead of using lettuce or whatever, if my parsley's really coming in abundantly, which I plant a lot of it, so it really does, I'll just grab tons of it, throw it in a bowl, dress it with a vinaigrette, throw some onions on there, maybe a little bit of feta cheese or something, and a little lemon. Lemon goes so good with parsley, and just dig in. I mean, I like parsley that much, and I always have. When I was a kid and we used to go to the restaurants and they had a little garnish of parsley, I'd been taught to eat everything on my plate, so I ate the parsley. And people were like, you shouldn't eat the parsley. And I'm like, why? It's good. It tastes good, right? Well, the parsley is not only very good for you, which we'll get into in a minute, it not only makes your food taste better, it was originally put on the plate as a garnish, and this goes back to ancient Rome and Greece and who knows how far back, because it is good for digestion. It actually helps you digest your food and avoid indigestion, gas on your stomach, burping. It helps with hiccups. It helps with everything. I mean, parsley is just, it freshens the breath. In fact, probably the primary reason the Romans were so fond of it, Romans had a strong preoccupation with bad breath. There are tons. Seriously, you go back and read the old literature, they had all kinds of remedies for bad breath. Well, they did eat a lot of garlic. They did eat a lot of anchovies, garum. Garum is a fermented fish sauce. It's sort of an ancestor to like Worcestershire sauce and such as that. And it was before dental care. They had rotten teeth, so they ate strong, stinky foods, and they had rotten teeth. So they ate a lot of parsley, coriander, which is cilantro, very, very closely related herbs. Chewed on cloves when they could get them, imported. Cinnamon as well. A lot of the cooking herbs and spices, they really come down for two reasons. They were either used to preserve meat before refrigeration. They have antibacterial, antimicrobial properties, or they freshen the breath and help with digestion. And that's how they got into our diet. That's why we have that sprig of parsley on the plate. And I hope from now on you'll at least try to eat the parsley, because it really nothing feels better on your stomach after a heavy fatty meal than some fresh parsley. It's just really, really nice. Caraway seeds can be used similarly. It's why you'll see a lot of like caraway and anise and coriander. There's one other, fennel. You'll see these in alcoholic beverages called digestifs. These are little liqueurs you would have after a meal to settle your stomach and help you digest your food. And when people used to have these big feasts with many, many courses, there would be a little, parsley or a digestif between each course. And before the meal, you'd actually have another little cordial to stimulate your appetite. And the wine you drank with the meal would be herbed with borage or other herbs, all of these to help with digestion and make everything go down better. And they're so good for health, and really putting the herbs in the wine, making these little cordials, these digestifs and aperitifs and all that. You can do this in your own kitchen, and you don't have to drink a whole lot. It's just a little sip here and there, and it's going to make your meal so much more pleasant. Even now, if you go to some more traditional Italian families that put on a big spread for Sunday, you're going to have some anisette. You might have some sambuca. These are actually aperitifs and digestifs, and that tradition that really goes back at least as far as ancient Greece. And really they think the Greeks learned it from the Egyptians, who may have learned it from the Babylonians. This is literally going back as far as recorded human history, when the water was not good to drink and people began realizing if they put certain herbs, they could preserve beer longer, they could make the water drinkable, they could do all kinds of stuff, right? They could keep the wine from turning to vinegar with certain herbs. And as the wine turned to vinegar with certain herbs, it became a dressing to go on salad. It's herbal medicine and cooking are so inextricably related that we really shouldn't break them down into two different fields. It's like Hippocrates said, let medicine be your food and food be your medicine. So, and really just to illustrate this point, in my grandmother's last years, she'd had some heart attacks and such. She's pretty much wheelchair bound, and she was very weak, and she usually just did not have an appetite. All the doctors wanted to give her was like Ensure, those nutritional beverages that are like sweet milkshakes, and she could not stand it. It was turning her stomach, and she was going to die if she didn't get some food in her. Now, my grandma was a fantastic cook, the best cook in the community, widely recognized, and no one could cook to her standards, That's really, I was very fortunate to be able to spend that time with her, and she would tell me how to cook what she wanted to eat. And on other days, I would cook something that was different, just to kind of stimulate. I'd do chicken parmesan was something she really liked. Chef salad was something she really liked. Caesar salad. Things that were just kind of different and would perk up the taste. What I found is by including parsley in the dish, it increased her appetite and she ate more food. And, that is because, our taste buds aren't the only way we interpret food. The nose has a lot to do with it. When you lose your sense of smell, like when you have a cold or COVID or whatever, you lose your sense of taste. to a large degree. I mean, it really cuts it down. And as people get older, especially when they don't have a lot of good circulation, they begin to lose their sense of smell. So by using parsley, the essential oils in the parsley, we're taking more food up the back of the throat to the sinus, I mean more flavors of food, and that was stimulating appetite and helping ease digestion. And it probably added at least a year or two to her life. So if you have an elderly person you're caring for, an invalid of any form, always remember food is essential. Those nasty, sweet, nutritional drinks get old very quickly, and parsley and some salt can really. I mean, that's another mistake they make, like in nursing homes and hospitals. They don't put salt in the food. Nobody wants to eat food that isn't salted, and salt really isn't bad for you. A lot of those studies that warned against salt so much in the 80s were found to be baseless. I mean, we need fat, we need salt. The whole low-fat diet was entirely fraudulent and made up. We need animal fat, we need salt, and yeah, sometimes we need some sour, we need a little vinegar, some lemon juice. I mean, yeah, I mean, if I'm going to eat fried fish, I want some lemon juice on there. If I'm going to eat fried chicken, I want some hot sauce on there. And we need herbs like parsley that are not only good for us medicinally, but enhance the flavor of foods. So anyway, let's get into a little bit of the history of parsley. Parsley was so well known in Greek medicine, it's believed to be one of the herbs that Homer described in the Odyssey. Parsley was a favorite herb of Hippocrates. He believed it to be a veritable cure-all. Okay, now I have issues with people who say Hippocrates said. Well, I'm gonna qualify. I have not been able to source that quote. I have been through everything I can find on him that was written by Hippocrates, and I have not found him saying it was a veritable cure-all. But later authors said that he said it. So I don't. Okay, I'm just going to say in Greek medicine it was considered to be a veritable cure-all, whether Hippocrates said it or not. I am not sure. I know Pliny the Elder, and I know Dioscorides, and I know Theophrastus, and all those guys. They knew parsley. They liked parsley. Um, the For instance, his student Theophrastus mentioned parsley in his book Inquiry into Plants. And if Theophrastus was Hippocrates' student, maybe that's how we know that Hippocrates valued parsley. Because, like I said, I've read everything I can find written by Hippocrates, and it wasn't listed. But Theophrastus mentioned mountain celery, which was parsley, and he said he said the leaf was like the hemlock, and we talked, I think it was last week, about how poison hemlock is in the same family as parsley and carrots, so that would be obvious. The root is slender, and there are actually parsley plants you can grow for the root. Being similar to carrot and parsnip, there are actually parsley plants that have a larger edible root. Very delicious, very good roasted, very good pickled, but mostly, we use the leaves. And the seeds. Parsley seed is actually very good. He said it was given in wine for diseases of women. That's basically all he said about it. That's why, I don't know if that's how we got that information on Hippocrates or not. Now, Dioscorides wrote of several plants in the parsley family, and the one he called, again, I don't speak Greek, so it actually looks like Oreoselenon. Oreoselenon, I don't know, but it was the parsley we know today. That's common garden parsley. That's probably flat leaf parsley, considering the part of the world he came from. He said Oreoselenon, we'll go with parsley, you know what it looks like. He describes the plant first, again saying it looks like hemlock, but was a great deal more slender. And of course it is. And he says, he said it grew in rocky mountainous places, and that would be before it was what we call improved, made into a garden plant. He said, taken as a drink in wine, the seed and root are both urinary. They also expel menstrual flow. What does he mean that? He means it's diuretic, and it brings on menstruation. It's what we call a menagogue. It is mixed with antidotes, diuretics, and heating medicine. Well, he was basically saying that the wild parsley at this point was exactly the same as the parsley being cultivated in Rome and Egypt. So, anyway, Pliny the Elder said parsley is held in universal esteem, for we find sprigs of it swimming in the draughts of milk given to us to drink in country places. Now, why is that? Remember how I said certain herbs would preserve beer and wine. They would purify the water to make it able to drink. Parsley was put into milk to keep it from souring. Mint was used similarly. But parsley, of course, is not as strong a flavor as mint, and people who could afford it before refrigeration would make sure that they had parsley put in the milk so they could drink it for a day or two before it began to sour and curdle and all that. Parsley shows up in a lot of herbs cheeses. Very, very, very likely that is how parsley began to show up in herb cheeses. And I've mentioned before that one of my all-time heroes of outdoors stuff and cooking was the great George Leonard Herder. George Herder in The Bull Cook talks about how an old wine vendor's trick or beer vendor's trick back in probably the late 1800s, early 1900s, was to take cheese and put it on a cracker and sprinkle a little celery salt or parsley on it. I think he said parsley, or he may have said they could have been used interchangeably, but that would enhance eating the cheese now that had the parsley and celery leaf, and as I said, they can be used interchangeably to enhance flavor, would increase the flavor, enhance the flavor of the beer or wine, and the vendors were able to charge a higher price for it. It's also said that this was used in a lot of bars and saloons, put on the snacks so people would drink more beer, and they made more money that way. That's why they used to more than they do now. If you went to a bar, there was going to be a salty snack of like peanuts or corn nuts or something, and the salt would make people buy more beer. Believe it or not, around early 1900s, they would give away caviar in Western saloons just to get people to buy more beer. The beer was more expensive than caviar. But anyway, that's celery salt and parsley have long been used to enhance the flavors of food. Where was I? I was on Pliny the Elder. He said it was an excellent seasoning for sauces, and it has its own peculiar flavor. I guess you could say that. Applied to the eyes with honey, which must be fomented from time to time with a warm decoction, it has a most marvelous efficacy in cases of defluxion of the organs or of other parts of the body. I think you say it's good for the eyes and for other parts of the body. Yeah. And when beaten up and applied by itself or in combination with bread or polenta, which actually at that time was a sort of cream of wheat, a grain gruel, essentially. Not polenta as we know it now is served in Italy, made from cornmeal because they didn't have corn. But they did have wheat, and they had rye and spelt and barley and all that good stuff. So they did. They ate a lot of porridge. In fact, Hippocrates' favorite remedy wasn't actually any herb at all. It was barley water, water in which barley had been soaked. That was the main remedy he gave for just about everything, by the way. Anyway, he said, fish too, when found to be in an ailing state in the preserves, are greatly refreshed by giving them parsley. They were actually fish farming in ancient Greece. They were really pioneered fish farming and snail farming, oyster farming. It goes back a long ways. Mussels, I think, even more than oysters. But they would use parsley as a medicine for fish. This is an interesting statement. He says, as to the opinion entertained upon it, among the learned, there is not a single production dug out of the earth in reference to which a greater diversity exists. That's a very flowery, I can't speak right now. That was a very fancy way of saying that of all the plants that were known in Greek herbal medicine, this one had the most diverse and useful properties. That is how important parsley was in ancient medicine. He said that parsley was used for a number of ailments, and he said, indeed, they look upon it as nothing less than sacrilege to not use it. And it was consecrated, it was used in funeral feasts, it was used to honor the dead. Anyway, he actually said that they thought the female parsley was bad for the eyesight. They're actually just two varieties of parsley, and we use them interchangeably now. And but at that point, it was thought that what they called the male parsley was better for women, and the female parsley was better for men. I'm not sure. It doesn't really actually matter anymore. He said it would make drinks more agreeable to drink. The juice of the root, more particularly mixed with wine, allays the pains of lumbago, and injected into the ears, it diminishes hardness of hearing. That's actually a very common use for parsley in ancient herbal medicine, was to help with deafness. I don't know why. It has anti-inflammatory properties, and that may have helped. It may have helped just kind of unplug the ears. I don't know. Worth a try. Hey, I mean, it's not going to hurt you. And it has some properties that could help prevent against ear infections as well. The seed of it acts as a diuretic, promotes the menstrual discharge, and brings away the afterbirth. Bruised and livid spots, if fomented with a decoction of parsley seed, will resume their natural color. That could be another reason why it helped the hearing. Applied topically with the white of an egg or boiled in water and then drunk. It is a remedy for affections of the kidneys. It's a very good kidney herb, by the way. And beaten up in cold water is a cure for ulcers of the mouth. The seed mixed with wine or the root taken with old wine has the effect of breaking calculi in the bladder. The seed, too, given in wine to a person afflicted with jaundice. So, what does all that mean? Well, the main thing to take away from that, parsley is the go-to herb for kidney and bladder stones. Also very good for the liver and various other things, but parsley is it's a diuretic. It'll help you urinate more. It can help lower blood pressure for that reason. But parsley also helps break up stones. You can use the stems. You don't have to, you can use the leaves in your cooking. You can take your parsley stems, nice, fresh and green, put them in a blender, mix them with whatever you want. They liked it with wine. You can take it in water. You can do it with whatever. And that is the best. You can make a tea out of it even. That is the go-to, the very first herb that one looks at when trying to address kidney and bladder stones. The Holy Roman Emperor Charlemagne commanded by emperor's command. He ordered that parsley be grown throughout the empire in a document called the Capitulaire, which was really one of the founding documents of monastic herbal medicine, because all monasteries had to have an herb garden and free hospitals to treat everybody, rich and poor. But he also commanded it be grown in everyone's garden throughout the Roman Empire. St. Hildegard von Bingen wrote of parsley. She said, "Parsley is a robust nature and has in it more heat than cold. It grows from wind and humidity and is better and more useful for a person when it is raw rather than cooked in food. When it is eaten, it attenuates fever." That means it lowers fever. Especially, well, she said when the fever lightly touches the person, so she's not talking a very strong fever. Nevertheless, it generates seriousness in a person's mind. She believed parsley could clear the mind. But one who ails in his heart, spleen, or sides should cook parsley in wine with a little vinegar and honey. If he strains this through a cloth and often drinks it, so strain out the bits and just drink the liquid, it makes him well. But one whose stomach is ill should take parsley and twice as much fennel and as much soapwort as parsley and make a relish from them. To this he should add butter or beef fat and roasted salt and eat it often as a condiment. I mean, essentially, this is a condiment, an old-fashioned herbal food to settle the stomach, and actually it'd be pretty darn tasty. I love the combination of parsley with fennel. I do that, when I make Italian sausage. I never leave the parsley and fennel out. Some people, they say in a hot sausage don't put fennel. I like as much hot pepper and fennel and parsley as I can get in there. I think it's absolutely delicious. And I'll do a little garlic, and I'll do a little oregano, and I make an excellent Italian sausage, by the way. To this he should add, I already did that. All right. But one who has pains from eating garlic should soon eat parsley, and he will have less pain. You ever have some raw garlic? It's kind of hot, and it kind of upsets your stomach and makes you start burping. Raw parsley to eaten will take care of that very quickly. And parsley and garlic pair together so wonderfully. I mean, again, I put a lot of garlic in my Italian sausage as well. But parsley and garlic by them, I mean, just combined together, if you only had two herbs, would be essentially a panacea for most ailments. Parsley and garlic, those two things, if that's all you had, that would be all you really need for most conditions. I mean, that's a huge, broad statement. It's probably overstated, but I think if I had to only pick two herbs, throw in some, I don't know, dandelion or something, and I'm set. I mean, parsley and garlic, let me just go with that. And, as a foundation of my philosophy of herbal medicine, those would be it. She said one who is in pain from a stone, it's going to be a kidney or bladder stone, probably a gallstone as well, should take parsley and add a third part of saxifrage. He should cook this in wine and strain it through a cloth and drink it in a sauna. He should cook parsley and a third part of saxifrage in water and pour the waters over the hot stones in the same sauna bath. If he does this often, he will be better. So you would be taking it internally and using it as a steam. She said one who is tortured by paralysis in the shoulders should take equal weights of parsley and fennel with a little less sage. He should grind these herbs together in moderate amounts in a mortar and add rose-tinged olive oil to it. He should place it over the place where he is suffering and tie it with a cloth. So that's rose-infused olive oil with parsley and fennel to be used essentially as a, liniment, whatever, an infused oil. I mean, liniment's really more alcohol-based. I'm just blanking on the word, but you got it, right? And she said, one who has soft flesh and a limb troubled by gout from excessive drinking should take parsley and 4 times as much rye and fry this in a small dish with olive oil, or if he has no olive oil, he should fry them with goat tallow. He should tie these warm herbs on the place where it hurts and it will be better. Parsley, usually used internally, but she's obviously doing another external application there. Very useful for gout. Parsley and cilantro are both herbs that can remove, or coriander. Yeah, coriander is the seed of cilantro, by the way. They can remove certain toxins and heavy metals from the system, and parsley has long been used to help with gout. Brother Aloysius, who was Father Nape's protege, really the one that took a lot of the monastic medicine of the Middle Ages and brought it into the 1900s, said that parsley was used for dropsy, stomach complaints. Dropsy is edema, it's excess water making your ankle swell, for instance. Stomach complaints, gravel, bladder, spleen, and liver complaints, jaundice, scrofula, that's swollen glands, actually hard kernels. It's a glandular condition in the neck. But also, he said, for general swollen glands, hematuria, inflammation of the prostate, renal and bladder stones, difficult urination, asthma, pain in the chest, and phlegm in the chest and stomach. When I say it's like a panacea, it's a veritable cure-all. Think about everything. Think about all the systems that just hit in the body. Igor Vilovich Zevin wrote a very interesting book about herbal medicine in Russia. And he says that the Greeks brought parsley to Russia between the 10th and 11th centuries. The Russian name Petrosia, I don't speak Russian either, obviously, is derived from Petrosillinum, which means, it means Peter's strength. Parsley was actually known as Peter's strength. The herbal, the name of which was called Refreshing Wind Town, I don't get that, but it was published in 1672, states that parsley, herb, makes stones run out of the bladder and kidneys and takes out the weakness of the liver, and it's written in a sort of an odd way. It actually says bellies sometimes make, but I'm going to just say it helps get rid of bladder and kidney stones, helps with the liver inflammation and liver processes, and settles the stomach. I think that's what bellies sometimes make meant in Russian in 1672. But going to the Polish tradition, Sophie Hodorowicz-Nab tells us the leaves and roots of parsley were being used in Poland in the 16th century. For treatments of hernia, a plaster was made from parsley, southernwood, which is an artemisia, it's in the wormwood family, and fat, and applied to the groin. If one suffered from a swollen abdomen, an application of fresh parsley and a drink made from the leaves reduced the swelling. Gerard wrote of parsley, 1500s England. The leaves are pleasant in sauces and broth, which besides that they give a pleasant taste. They be a singular good to take away stoppings and provoke urine. Okay, again he's talking diuretic. All right. Which thing the roots likewise do, notably perform if they be boiled in broth. They also be delightful to the taste and agreeable to the stomach. So, Elizabethan English, by word it was convoluted, but what he is saying is that it helps with, as a diuretic, to provoke the urine, and it settles the stomach and makes food taste better. He said the seeds are more profitable for medicine. They thin, open, and provoke urine, dissolve the stone, break waste away, and are good for such as have the dropsy, draw down menses, bring away the birth and afterbirth. They be commended also against the cough, if they be mixed and boiled with medicines made for that purpose. Lastly, they resist poisons, and are therefore mixed with treacles. Parsley, as I said, is one of those herbs that can help remove toxins from the system. So it was included in many of the poison antidotes, which were very popular at the time. I don't know if people were just running around poisoning each other. If you read Shakespeare, you could probably think they were, but there were a lot of poison remedies that herbalists were very... Each one seemed to have his own formula, and there was a lot of patenting, essentially, of these poison antidote formulas, really between the Elizabethan era on this end and really going back to to ancient Greece and a little before, when like Mithridates, he had his own. People tried to poison the king. They wanted his role. Well, I mean, by the time we get to Shakespeare, it seemed like people were poisoning everybody. I don't know. And then we get into like the Borgias in Italy, and yeah, you probably wanted to have a little bit of a poison antidote on you if you possibly could. Let's see. Gerard said the roots or seeds of any of them, the parsley, boiled in ale and drunken, cast forth strong venom or poison, but the seed is the strongest part of the herb. So he was saying take essentially parsley seed or root and boil it in ale to cast forth strong venom, which would be like from a snake or a spider, I guess, or poison. So yeah, he really believed in that. They were also good to be put into clysters against the stone or torments of the gut. So again, he's talking kidney bladder stones, but I think he's also talking gas and cramping. And Gerard, about 100 years later, in his unique way, says it was under the dominion of Mercury. But he said it is very comfortable to the stomach, helps provoke urine and women's courses. Again, it's an emmenagogue. To break wind both in the stomach and the bowels, so it helps with, gas, flatulence, whatever. And doth a little open the body. But the root much more. It opens obstructions both of the liver and the spleen, and is therefore accounted one of the 5 opening roots. Galen commended it against the falling sickness. So Galen thought it was actually good for epilepsy. Apparently, now we have a little more knowledge of epilepsy, but the ancient herbalists believed at least one form of epilepsy was often caused by excess retention of fluid, and that diuretics would help with that. There's probably something to that. It was documented throughout most of the ancient world. That was still the common belief in German folk medicine in the 1900s. You find it in the Thomsonians and the eclectics here in America. Probably not necessarily the condition that is diagnosed as epilepsy now, but there was, and probably still is, a case that similar symptoms are caused, like seizures and such, caused by excess fluid retention. I do know that if licorice is used in excess, and licorice strengthens the kidneys, it actually causes them to retain fluid. It can cause seizures. So I think there really is something to that. And am I going to say that parsley and other herbs that are diuretic in nature could help with what's diagnosed as epilepsy now? No, I'm not. But probably maybe something you want to look into if epilepsy and seizures are a concern for you. Not all seizures are epileptic in nature, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But at the time, especially in the 1600s England, they were all called the falling sickness. Anyway, Culpeper says they provoke urine mightily, especially the roots being boiled and eaten like parsnips. The seed is effectual to provoke urine in women's courses and to expel wind, to break the stone, and to ease the pains and torments thereof. It is also effectual against the venom of any poisonous creature, and the danger that comes to them that have the lethargy. It is also good against the cough. The distilled water of parsley is a familiar medicine with nurses to give their children when they are troubled with wind in the stomach or belly, which they call the frets, and also much available to them that are of great years. So it helped with the aged and children is all he means. The leaves of parsley laid on eyes that are inflamed with heat or swollen doth much help them. That's the same thing St. Hildegard was saying back in about 1100 in a completely different part of the world in a different language. If it be used with bread or meal and being fried with butter and applied to women's breasts that are hard through the curdling of their milk, it abates the hardness quickly and also takes away black and blue marks coming from bruises or falls. The juice thereof dropped into the ears with a little wine eases the pains. Again, that's going back a long ways. Tragus sets down, Tragus, I guess, in his excellent medicine. It is excellent medicine to help the jaundice and falling sickness, the dropsy, the stone in the kidneys, and let's see. Take the seed of parsley, fennel, anise, and caraway of each an ounce to the root of parsley, burnet, saxifrage, and caraways of each an ounce and a half. Let the seeds be bruised and the roots washed and cut small, and let them lie all night and steep in a bottle of white wine, and in the morning be boiled in a closed earthen vessel until a third part or more be wasted. Boiling off a lot of the alcohol is basically what they're doing, which be strained and cleared. Take 4 ounces therefore in the morning and evening, first and last, abstaining from drink after it for 3 hours. He's found that, he said, to be the most effective to open obstructions of the liver and spleen and expel the dropsy and jaundice by urine. Just sum up the British tradition with Miss Grieve. She gives a lot of history. I'm already running a little long here, so I won't get into it. But she talks about how Linnaeus kind of sorted out the various varieties and the high esteem that the Greeks held it in. I mean, it was literally considered one of the sacred herbs in Greek, and actually legend says it was reputed to have sprung from the blood of a Greek hero, Acamoris, the forerunner of death, and Homer relates that the chariot horses were fed by warriors with the leaves, and Greek gardens were often bordered with parsley and rue. Rue actually helps keep out some insects, so it kind of makes sense. She said, this is 1930s English, she says, the medical virtues of parsley are still fully recognized. In former times, it was considered a remedy for more disorders than it is now used for, however. I think that's very true. She said, medicinal actions and uses. The uses of parsley are many and are by no means restricted to the culinary sphere. The most familiar employment of the leaves is in their fresh state, of course finely chopped as a flavoring for sauces, soups, stuffings, rissoles, minces, etc., and sprinkled over vegetables or salad. The leaves are extensively cultivated, etc., etc. Medicinally, the 2-year-old roots are employed, also the leaves dried for making parsley tea, and the seeds for an extraction of the oil called apiol, which is of considerable curative value. I'll just skip ahead to plants for future, and we'll just get to current use. The fresh leaves are highly nutritious and can be considered a natural vitamin and mineral supplement in their own right. The plant's prime use is a diuretic, where it is effective in ridding the body of stones and in the treatment of jaundice, dropsy, cystitis, etc. It is also a good detoxifier, helping rid the body of toxins via the urine, and therefore helping in the treatment of a wide range of diseases such as rheumatism. The seed is a safe herb at normal doses, but in excess can have toxic effects. Same is true of cilantro, by the way. Coriander can be quite actually intoxicating, and in large amounts can actually cause seizures, by the way. I think we discussed coriander before. A really interesting herb there. But parsley should not be used by pregnant women because it is used to stimulate menstrual flow and can therefore provoke a miscarriage. All parts of the plant can be used medicinally. The root is the part most often used, though the seeds have a stronger action. Parsley is anti-dandruff. Get ready now. I'm going to give you a big list. Anti-dandruff, antispasmodic, aperient, carminative, digestive, diuretic, emmenagogue, expectorant, galactofuge. That means actually where it increases menstruation, it actually reduces milk production in lactating mothers. Kidney, stomatic, and tonic. An infusion of the seeds is taken after childbirth to promote lactation. Wow, so it actually promotes lactation at one point and reduces it at another point, because that would be galactagogue. Huh. I actually didn't see that my first read through. And to help contract the uterus. Parsley is also a mild laxative. It is useful for treating anemia and convalescence. Caution is advised on the internal use of this herb, especially in the form of essential oil. I always warn against the internal use of essential oil. They're just too strong in that form for many oils. Excessive doses can cause liver and kidney damage, nerve inflammation, and gastrointestinal hemorrhages. So I would not use the essential oil internally. I would just use the natural herb in its natural state. It should not be prescribed for pregnant women or people with kidney disease. It can overstimulate the kidneys. I mean, it's a strong diuretic. A poultice of the leaves has been applied externally to soothe bites and stings. It is said to be of value in treating tumors of a cancerous nature. It has been used to treat eye infections. The juice soaked into a wad of cotton will relieve toothache or earache. It is also said to prevent hair loss and to make freckles disappear. The leaves are kept close to the breasts of a nursing mother for a few days. The milk flow will cease. So that's how it's a galactofuge. So used internally, it stimulates lactation. Used externally, it dries up the milk. So that clears that up. So like I said, parsley is absolutely fascinating. I put it in just about everything. And I mean, from potatoes and baked potato, from mashed potatoes to meats to gravies to salads. Sometimes I would just take some parsley and fry it up with bacon and toss a little lemon juice on there and just eat it like that. I mean, it's so good. And really one of the easiest ways to eat a bunch of parsley is with pasta. You can just take fresh parsley, big handful of it, chop it up fine. Make some spaghetti or whatever pasta you like. Put in some olive oil, pasta, maybe a little lemon zest, salt and pepper to taste, and some Parmesan, and bacon. Oh yeah, put some crumbled bacon on there, and go to town. I mean, that is one of my go-to absolute favorite pasta meals. I eat it probably on a weekly basis through the summer. And a little white wine really goes well too. Absolutely. Just remember, save the cheese for the end. You want to do your olive oil, white wine, parsley, maybe a little lemon, because if you put the cheese in there with the wine, it's just going to kind of gum up and stick to the bottom of the pan, and that's not what we want. We want the cheese to kind of be tossed through the pasta and kind of make it a little more dry in texture, and that's a wonderful flavor. It really is. Parsley's actually nice in, of course, cocktails as well. I mean, what's a Bloody Mary without some either celery leaves, celery stalk, or some parsley in there? Definitely give that a try. Chop up parsley and mix it with softened butter, and you can make a parsley butter that you can spread on toast. You can put on top of a steak, put it on corn like we talked about last week. I mean, I can't think of any savory dish that parsley does not go absolutely fantastically in, and enhance it, makes the flavor better, and makes you healthier. So if honestly, if you just grow one leafy herb in your garden, it should probably be parsley. It really is, in my opinion, the most underrated and fantastic of all the herbs in our modern way of thinking about medicinal and culinary herbs. Parsley is great. All right, y'all. Have a great week. Remember, if you get into eating poke greens or poke salad, be careful and be cautious. And otherwise, just enjoy this beautiful spring weather. I mean, my strawberries are starting to flower. I'm looking forward to a nice harvest. Parsley actually works well in fruit, by the way. I totally forgot to mention this. Strawberries chopped up with a little bit of lemon juice and parsley, fantastic. The parsley actually enhances the taste of strawberries. Melons like cantaloupes and honeydews and such, with a little salt and parsley, it will enhance the flavor of the melons. So yeah, even well beyond savory dishes. I mean, from fish to watermelon, I don't care, and anything in between. Parsley is going to really make it fantastic. So anyway, y'all, have a great week, and I will talk to you next time.
The information in this podcast is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease or condition. Nothing I say or write has been evaluated or approved by the FDA. I'm not a doctor. The U.S. government does not recognize the practice of herbal medicine, and there is no governing body regulating herbalists. Therefore, I'm really just a guy who studies herbs. I'm not offering any advice. I won't even claim that anything I write or say is accurate or true. I can tell you what herbs have been traditionally used for. I can tell you my own experience and if I believe an herb has helped me. I cannot nor would I tell you to do the same. If you use an herb anyone recommends, you are treating yourself. You take full responsibility for your health. Humans are individuals and no two are identical. What works for me may not work for you. You may have an allergy, a sensitivity, an underlying condition that no one else even shares and you don't even know about. Be careful with your health. By continuing to listen to my podcast or read my blog, you agree to be responsible for yourself, do your own research, make your own choices, and not to blame me for anything ever.